All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. We may have a few more folks join us in a few minutes, but I want to get us started. So welcome everyone to the DEI Roundtable for August. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. I just wanted to run through a few housekeeping things before we get started. We are recording this session today, so just want everyone to be aware of that. The recording will be available on our website after the call today. So if you have to step out for anything, you miss a part of it, you will be able to listen to the full recording at your convenience after we're done today. I would ask that everyone, when you're not speaking, put yourself on mute if you can. Please don't use the hold button though, because we will all be able to hear your hold music if you put us on hold. So if you have to step away or have a conversation, please just go ahead and mute your phone so that we are not privy to that conversation. So with that, I wanted to welcome everyone. We're going to take just a few minutes. If you are looking at the screen on Zoom on the right, you can see who has joined us today, but I wanted to give folks the opportunity to just do a quick round of introductions, shout outs if you're on the line, so just let us know who you are and what chamber you're from. So we'll do some quick introductions, and then we'll have a little bit of time for folks to share exciting things that are happening at their chamber related to DEI or any questions. So we will start with introductions, and I will start. So I'm Amy Shields with ACCE. I am the staff member for the DEI division. If I haven't had the chance to meet you before, excited to have you on the line today. And then I'm going to turn it over to our presenters in Boston to go ahead and introduce themselves, and we will be hearing from them in just a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Amy. This is Marcela Merino. I'm a senior manager at the Boston Chamber.
Thank you, Amy. This is Casey Baines. I'm an economic growth coordinator at the Boston Chamber.
Great. Thank you both for joining us. Who else is on the line?
This is Rita Berry with the Greater Somerville-Dorchester County Chamber.
Great. Welcome, Rita.
Hi,
Thank you.
Sarah Barnett with the Chicagoland Chamber.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Jason Benitez, Capital Region Chamber in upstate Albany, New York.
Welcome, Jason.
Hi, this is Tony Howard with the Loudoun County, Virginia Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Lori Hindle with the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Lori.
Simone Thornton with the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome, Simone.
This is
Lauren Gum.
Mulcahy.
Lauren Gum with Commerce Lexington, filling in for Tyrone Tyra.
Welcome.
And this is Lisa Mulcahy with the Northern Kentucky Chamber.
Welcome. Glad to have you join us.
This is Ronelle Montgomery with the St. Petersburg Chamber.
Glad to have you on the line today.
Hi, Brian Hall with the Greater Cleveland Partnership.
Welcome, Brian. And for those of you who haven't met Brian, Brian is the chair of our DEI division. So we're always glad to have him on the line.
Happy to be here. Happy so many people joined today, too. Great.
And this is Sheena Collier, also at the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Sheena. Anyone else want to introduce themselves before we move on to what's new and what's happening at your chamber?
This is Barbara Stapleton with the Greater Topeka Chamber. Greater Topeka Partnership, sorry, not Chamber.
Great. Well, I know some other folks may join us. If you have just called in, I'm just going to ask one more time. If you're not speaking, if you can put yourself on mute when you're not speaking, that way we don't get any background noise. And if you are listening in, you're using your phone to call in, if you can mute your computer microphone, sometimes that causes some feedback when you're using Zoom, if you're using the phone, but also your computer microphone or your speakers are on. So just mute what you can. And now I'd like to just have a few minutes. If there's something exciting that your chamber has been working on in the DEI space, this is your chance to share that. Or if you have an issue or something that you've been grappling with, this is your chance to ask those questions. So we're going to take a couple of minutes now, and I will just open the floor to anyone who would like to ask a question or offer something that you'd like to share with the group.
This is Brian in Cleveland. I'll be happy to break the ice. We have on Thursday our 13th annual Inclusion Conference. We'll have about 250 professionals, HR and diversity professionals from our chamber membership. It's being sponsored this year by KPMG and their Global Chief Diversity Officer is our keynote speaker. The theme of the conference is Amplify, and we are talking about companies' brands and how their brands speak their values. And we will be having panels around both excellent examples and challenging examples of companies where things happen in the company that may not have been the best description or exposition of their values, how companies have addressed those, or how companies who value diversity and inclusion are making it a part of their brand, and how consumers, competitors, and suppliers learn about them. Our closing session is with the NBA, the National Basketball Association's Chief Diversity Officer is on a panel. He'll be joined also by a former professional football player, Super Bowl winner, and also Lindsay, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but she is the first female coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who will be joining us as well to talk about the NBA and sports and how they deal with the issue of branding around diversity and inclusion.
Great, thank you so much, Brian. Who else has something they'd like to share?
I know there's more.
This is Barbara Stapleton again. We do regular monthly meetings for our employers or businesses, from a business diversity perspective. But one thing that I'm excited, and I don't know if in your regions if you're seeing something similar, but our Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City that serves Kansas City, Denver, Oklahoma City, and Omaha in those states is providing or hosting a 2019 Diversity and Inclusion Summit, Intentional, Impactful, and Inclusive Leadership in Diversity and Inclusion, and that's occurring on September the 19th. I don't know if there are ones in your various areas or if you have a Federal Reserve Bank close to you, but it would be interesting. I don't know if any of you have even attended any trainings that they offer, but they're always free and they're always exceptional and really get some, not just in diversity and inclusion, but in anything that they do. So that's partly why I'm so excited about this. This is the first time I've attended this.
Great, thanks for that information.
And maybe you could always task your local federal, or your nearby Federal Reserve banks to challenge them to be like Kansas City and reach out to Kansas City and find out what they've done and how they did it, and maybe offer it more on a regional basis.
Great. Well, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for our presentation today. We will have time at the end for questions, and if there's anything else that you would like to share, we will have some time at the end to share as well. But for right now, I'd like to turn it over to Casey and Marcella from Boston. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and so you should be seeing the slides pop up shortly here. And I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation and turn it over to them.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work with all of you, and thank you all for joining. I'm very excited to hear that we have a good group, a good crowd. Again, my name is Marcela. I'm a senior manager at the Economic Growth Team for the Boston Chamber, and we're really excited to share the work that, with my colleague Casey, Justin, and Sheena, we have been doing around economic opportunity. Next slide, please. Next slide. Great, thank you. So I thought it would be good just to start by sharing with you what is the mission of the Boston Chamber. And for us, it's to make Greater Boston the best place for businesses and people to thrive. Our current president and CEO of the Chamber, Jim Rooney, he has been very intentional about promoting economic opportunity. And in fact, economic opportunity is one of our strategic priorities for the Chamber. And within our team, next slide, please. Thank you. And within our team, we're definitely reflected into that mission, into that purpose. And we're focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues to foster economic opportunities for all residents and business in the Greater Boston area. It's very exciting, some of the initiatives that we're going to present today, pace setters, talent setters, and we also have fun, which is led by Sheena Collier, who's here with us. Next slide, please. So first, we wanted to talk about pace setters, and next slide, please. So before we jump into what is the program about, and we thought it would be important just to share with you why are we doing this work. I think it's not new. Some of the statistics out there in terms of, what are the income gaps between racial groups. And this program really originated to tackle some of these income gaps. Just to give you an example, if you see the slide that we have in front of us, and this is pulled from the Federal Reserve Bank research, African American households have a median net worth of close to $8, while American households or Caucasian households have a median net worth of close to $250,000. So these kind of disparities really are shocking and are really sort of in making diversity, inclusion, economic opportunity even more important in today's regional economy priorities. Next slide, please. So before launching Pacesetters, we thought about, so what can we do to sort of help tackle some of these income gaps or close these income gaps between racial groups? And one way we thought about it was, what can we do to support small businesses, but in particular small businesses, minority-owned businesses? So we did some research. It took us maybe 1 or 2 years to do the research. And we found out that there were already great business support organizations out there that provide capacity building training programs for our small businesses. So thinking where can we have the greatest impact, we decided to design a program where we could leverage our corporations, our networks, and where we can focus on the demand side. And that's how Pacesetters was born. So launched in 2018, Pacesetters is a partnership of large and mid-sized companies and anchor institutions who use their collective purchasing power to create opportunities at scale for local ethnic minority-owned businesses. Next slide, please. So what are some of the Pacesetters goals, the corporation goals? We were very intentional about these goals in terms of, first, raising awareness about the economic benefits of extending opportunities to minority-owned companies. And these companies are really leading the way in procurement change. The second goal for these Pacesetter companies is about contracts, right? So we are very intentional about facilitating connections that could lead to more deals and more spending with minority-owned companies in the region. Another important aspect of the Pacesetters program is the peer learning or the peer-to-peer networking. We found out that through our quarterly meetings with Pacesetter corporations, one of the things that they see as the most valuable for the program is the sharing of best practices that happen within these quarterly meetings. And lastly, something that we're very proud of is the data piece. So it's really about not only raising awareness, not only sharing best practices. We collect and measure and report on how much these companies are spending with minority-owned companies. Next slide, please. So here, just to give you a sense of who are the Pacesetter companies, we have 21. We started with 11 in 2018. 10 more joined this year. And we're very excited because we feel that there's momentum, and all of these companies, as you see, they represent multiple industries, from banking to healthcare to academia and finance. Next slide, please. So one thing that we wanted to highlight is sort of how does this work? How does the Pacesetters program work? So again, our goal is to really facilitate connections, facilitate deals, provide access for these minority-owned companies to business opportunities with these corporations. So for that, we have matchmaking events. So we target supplier sourcing by chamber staff. That's how we sort of matchmake for opportunities within MBEs and our Pacesetter corporations. We also have periodic industry-specific matchmaking events. These actually have resulted very well, in the sense that instead of doing a networking event with all companies, all suppliers, we are very intentional in identifying which are the focus areas where we see the most opportunities for local procurement spending. And based on that, we manage events or matchmaking events that are centered around those themes. And we're also very excited that we'll be launching a procurement IT platform, Connexus. I'm not sure if some of you are aware of that procurement platform. And our goal with that is to really accelerate and facilitate the matchmaking process, as well to improve our tracking of deals in general procurement activity that happens between these corporations and the MBEs. So that's an important element of the Pacesetters, is a matchmaking. As I mentioned before, also the peer sharing. So this happens through our quarterly Pacesetter cohort meetings. We're also seeing the peer sharing, and something that's very valuable for these companies is just getting referrals. So for example, the Red Sox would refer one MBE that they like, they really recommend that other companies should do business with, and I think that's actually the best stamp of approval for these companies to continue doing business with other corporations. And they're really excited and engaged and motivated to do that, just send referrals. And we're also doing forums and roundtable discussions, and this is, again, going back to the raise awareness and also sharing of best practices around diversity, procurement, and just in general, what can we do better as a community to support MBEs and to support more diverse supplier base. Lastly, the data piece that I think I already mentioned, so just want to highlight also that we track the number of leads and deals underway, and within the Pacesetters, but also leads or deals they have done outside of Pacesetters. So this really is a program that is very comprehensive. It covers not only the matchmaking, not only the sharing of best practices, but also how can we make informed decisions by collecting data that is relevant for spending, for our suppliers, for our corporations, and how can we think about how the spending reflects in future goals for the program as well. Next slide, please. So just to give you a sense, so after 18 months, we're really excited to announce that we had closed 22 deals accounting to at least $3 million in new revenue for the MBEs. And this is just a subset of the procurement activity that is happening around these companies. So these are new deals that happen when we facilitated the connections between our Pacesetters and the suppliers that are enrolled in our Pacesetters program. Currently, we have close to 90 suppliers that are part of the Pacesetters program. The other thing that I wanted to highlight in terms of impact, and we are very proud of, is also the connections or those deals that happen with companies that either they already had a relationship and they met even before Pacesetters, but just by being part of Pacesetters, we feel that they're part of a group, they're more committed, and they felt like being part of this program has strengthened their relationship. So we're also really proud of sharing this deals that happened, even though they met or they were already sort of in way of doing a deal with a Pacesetter corporations. It really helped strengthen their relationship. And just to give you a sense, we have connected more than 100 people across all the industries through networking events. We do email introductions. And yeah, I think that those are the main impact numbers that we wanted to share with you. Next slide, please. So something that we also wanted to highlight, I think is relevant for all the folks that are joining in the call, is thinking about business support organizations and how do we build and think about partners, right? So we all have limited resources, and we want to make sure that we leverage already organizations that are doing great work in Boston or in other cities around the United States. And so for the first year, we really focused on identifying which were some of these business support organizations that we could leverage and work together for two main things. One is help us recruit MBEs that were ready to provide services and goods to large corporations. And at the same time, we could nominate companies or MBEs that we felt that they needed more training and either to get at capital or they needed more networking training. So we recruit, or we would nominate these companies to the nonprofit organizations that are listed here. We feel that for this initiatives or for these programs to work, it's super important to have strong pipeline partners. And this is just an example of some of the biggest, I would say, nonprofit organizations that are already doing great work supporting small businesses. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll pass it over to Casey that's going to talk about our Skills First internship program.
Great. Thank you, Marcela. I'm excited to talk with everyone about Skills First internships. Next slide, please. Skills First is the Chamber's skills-based, identity-blind hiring platform. The aim and the goal is to reduce hiring bias and offer more opportunities to students of color and also students from non-traditional academic backgrounds. So this initiative was launched as a pilot in the beginning of this calendar year, in the beginning of 2019, and we're very excited to share with you some of our learnings and then also how we plan to carry it forward in the next year. Next slide, please. So why this approach to hiring? Marcela talked about the data in previous slides that we considered when launching Pacesetters, and the Chamber took a similar approach when thinking about skills-based identity-blind hiring. There's lots of data out there that I'm sure you've seen and come across about possible ways to reduce hiring bias and what happens when you use a traditional resume screening versus skills-based and identity-blind screening. So the numbers are very significant. When an applicant of color is involved in a traditional resume screening, the numbers are at 20%. 20% of those applicants will be contacted for an interview. And then we increase to 60% when we use skills-based, identity-blind processes. So this is for a lot of different reasons, but I do want to highlight that the traditional resume process, it over-relies on education, sort of those top-tier schools. It over-relies on employment background, and it over-relies on personal connections. So sort of the who you know versus when we go to skills-based demonstration, it's what you know and how you can demonstrate that. Next slide, please. Great. So how does this work? So we are using a platform called SkillSmart. This technology platform allows for students to log in and register. They create a skills profile, which asks them to look at their past employment and their past volunteer experiences, anything where they're showing skills like communication, where they're showing teamwork skills. They're really able to showcase that on this platform. And then the employers are able to work with the SkillSmart team to rethink their traditional internship postings. So now the internship postings are reworded to look at the skills and highlight the skills needed and necessary for the internship. Then the student can shop through or browse through the internship roles that are available and apply for those using their skills profile. Next slide, please. Great. So from the pilot, we learned quite a few things. Here you'll see the internship postings during the pilot. 7 companies posted internships, and we had 13 internships posted total. The applications, we had 549 applications. 83% of those were started by students from pipeline partners. And I'll talk about pipeline partners in more depth later on, but we were very pleased by that number. 189 completed applications total from the pilot. And out of all of this, we had 5 students hired for paid, meaningful summer internships at John Hancock, Wayfair, Alexion Pharmaceuticals, and Suffolk Construction. John Hancock actually took 2 interns this summer. So the interns are now finishing up their internships, and we have been in contact with them, and we're very, very excited by these outcomes. Next slide, please. So our pipeline partners, as I previously mentioned, 83% of the students who applied during the pilot who started their applications came from our pipeline partners. So these are academic institutions as well as nonprofits who specialize in working with students and supporting students. This goes back to the same theme that Marcella was bringing up during the Pacesetters presentation. We really value our community partners, and we couldn't reach our students, we couldn't reach these potential interns without working with and valuing our partnerships with these nonprofits and with these academic institutions. I want to highlight UMass Boston. They have been great partners, and they actually offered a career services workshop to the interns this past summer, which was wonderful. They came on site to the chamber and met with the interns and worked with them on soft skills, and they've been great, great partners. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, we are working with the SkillSmart technology platform to launch this fully in actually next month, which is very exciting, and then we'll continue to roll those internship postings throughout to spring 2020. And all of those internship postings will be for summer of 2020. We're hoping that we'll get around 100 internships posted from a variety of different corporate partners. Next slide, please. Great. So at this moment, Marcella and I wanted to walk through some takeaways for both Pacesetters and Skills First, really looking at both programs collectively to see if we could bring everything together for you. So the collective effort needed for these initiatives to have a sustainable impact is something that's really important. So this is looking at the community and understanding the business leaders and partners who are engaged and who want to work with the Boston Chamber and want to work alongside with us for these economic inclusion initiatives. And then our second bullet point looks at the ecosystem that supports the growth of local and diverse businesses. A few examples of this are the Business Equity Initiative, Boston Impact Initiative. All of these nonprofits and community partners are critical to how we reach out to the small business community, and especially our minority business enterprises within that community, and how we can communicate with them on best ways to scale their business, access capital, all of the things that they need to grow. And then raising awareness about economic inclusion and diversity to build a healthy regional economy. The Boston Chamber is very committed to being a thought leader when it comes to proposing new and innovative ways to rally the business community and make sure that everyone understands our collective goals and the collective effort needed to move forward and make sure that Boston is a great place to live. I think Marcella's going to take it over from here.
Yeah, sure. No, that's actually, just to add to what Casey was saying, I think, this idea of diversity and inclusion, I think, one thing that we have learned is that these are things that it's not a nice to have. We really feel that companies are starting to understand, and part of our push is really to raise awareness about the competitive advantage of having a diverse workforce in a supplier base. So it's not only nice to have, I think for companies, it's really a competitive advantage to have a diverse workforce and a diverse supplier base. Other things that we have learned along the way as we grow these programs, and we think it's very important as you think also about, programs like this, is to secure commitment, and I would say early on, secure commitment from the executive leadership. And I would add to this as well, identify champions within those companies, within those organizations that can really help push this work forward internally. I think some companies are very good at sort of, communicating top down. Other companies, maybe they lack the channels to do that. So I feel like identifying those champions in the organization, it's important for these companies to continue growing. And to that point as well, I think we're working hard also within, our team and also with other companies, just educate them and trying to make them aware that it really takes mindset shift for these initiatives to really grow and scale within each of the companies. This is a mindset shift within, procurement. This is a mindset shift of how to recruit. And we're seeing that early success stories that we're really excited about. It's a long-term effort, and I would highlight that, it's still early on. But so far, we feel that there are some companies that are really leading the way. And we're really excited that we even have, within the pay setters and talent setters, we have companies that are committed to both. Mm-hmm. So I think that thinking about diversity is thinking about what, a company can do. And it's not only about having a more diverse workforce, but also how can we support a more local diverse economy. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'm going to open up for questions.
Great. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate you putting together the presentation, taking time to share. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute everyone. I put everyone on mute just to avoid any of that background information or background noise. So I have unmuted you, so you can feel free to chime in with a question. If you'd like to mute yourself again, just because you have background noise where you are, please feel free to do that. But at this point, the line should be open, and if you have a question, please feel free to go ahead and ask that question.
This is Brian in Cleveland, and thank you for that great presentation. We have been following the Pacesetter program, and in our strategic plan also have been thinking about something around hiring practices and similar to what you've outlined. My question for you because we also have a group of corporations who have decided to come together on the demand side, is two things. One, how active was your chamber CEO in the recruitment of those companies? And two, once you got the leadership of those companies involved, you mentioned identifying the champions. How did you go about doing that, and how do you continue to engage them?
No, that's a great question, and I'm happy to hear that you're thinking about, programs like this. So to your first question, Jim Rooney, our president and CEO, definitely was very active in recruiting these companies. I think he's together with the co-chairs of our Economic Opportunity Committee as well, Bob Rivers and Stephen Bright. I think the three of them were really sort of intentional in terms of, recruiting and making sure that we had companies that were engaged and committed in being part of this Pacesetters program. In fact, one of the events that we're having this year that Jim is leading is a CEO breakfast. So after 18 months, we decided this is a good time to pause, to reflect, and get together with the CEOs of the Pacesetter companies and reinforce the commitment that they have with Pacesetters, and celebrate successes, but also share things that we can be doing better. So it's work that it's not just only one time. I think you have to sort of, what I have learned, what I have observed so far is that there's different touch points in terms of, to get that commitment from the senior leaders of these corporations. So that's one thing to their first question. To your second question, how do you get, I think your question was more how to keep them engaged, right?
Yes.
We feel that, I'm sorry?
Yes, once you've identified the champions in those organizations, how do you engage them? How do you keep them engaged?
Right. So I think, first of all, I would say that engagement really starts by if they have the support from their organizations. So I'm thinking about some of the companies or some of these champions that are more engaged than others. They're just more motivated. I feel like they also have the right support system within their organizations to be more engaged. And again, it might also help, or actually it helps a lot, to have that leadership support. In terms of engaging, I really feel that, the role here as the chamber is to facilitate for those champions to really talk about the challenges that they face when trying to implement some of these programs, or when trying to, increase their diversity spend with suppliers, et cetera. I feel like having a place or a venue for them to present and to be heard and to actually learn from others keeps them engaged as well. That's super important, I think, the learning piece. And the third piece is, I think, to keep them engaged, I would say it's important to share and to celebrate and to recognize companies that are doing great job in terms of, promoting diversity efforts. And how can you do that? It could be, we're thinking about something that's on the way, is recognizing, let's say, the company that has done the best in terms of mentorship program, or some kind of awards to show, the company that has closed the most deals, or who has closed the largest contract. So those are some ideas that we as a team are still exploring, but I think recognition is important to keep people engaged.
And I would add, too, that we're also trying to work with our partners who are engaged and really, like Marcella was saying, celebrate them and highlight what they're doing. So one of our corporate partners is actually putting together a workshop for the small businesses, the minority business enterprises, titled How to Do Business with This Corporation. So that's really going to be an in-depth, it's going to be an invitation to that corporation's headquarters, and then an in-depth dive into how to do business with them, what their procurement departments are like, what their style is like, really showing everything about, what they prefer to see when they start to consider bids and RFPs and all of that stuff. So allowing our corporate partners to showcase a little bit more about their companies is something that seems to be well received too, to keep people engaged.
Have a follow-up question. This is Doug from the Knoxville Chamber in Knoxville, Tennessee. When you talked with private companies about supplier diversity, what were the biggest issues you had in talking with them? Did any of them say, hey, we're open to doing business, we want to do this, but we just don't know how? And how did you deal with that, and what systems did you use to keep track of all of this stuff?
So that's a great question. Thank you for that. Lots of the companies are at different, they're coming to the table with different experiences and different levels of engagement when it comes to the space of procurement with minority business enterprises. So yes, some companies don't have as much experience. Some of them are asking, where do we find MBEs who are able to fulfill these large contracts, or who are able to do business with us for a long period of time, whatever the parameters are that need to be met. Sometimes they do voice concerns about it. So there are a few things that happen. We let our corporate partners know, who are members of the Pacesetters Initiative, that the MBEs who are in our Pacesetters supplier base, they've gone through a vetting process with the Chamber. So the Chamber has done some analysis of the supplier's business to understand what type of contracts they can handle. So the Pacesetter corporations usually feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that there's been some in-depth analysis and understanding of the minority business enterprises past, their past clients, everything to their revenues, how long they've been in business. And then we also share best practices. As Marcella was mentioning, we have quarterly meetings with our Pacesetter companies. We sit around the table and everyone really shares from their industry, from their sector, from their corporation. They share what they're seeing and what's difficult and what's a little bit easier. So it's definitely a process, and it's a conversation that's ongoing. But we invite our Pacesetter corporations to be honest with us if they are having trouble, or if they have concerns about different companies or about the companies that they're receiving. But through this initiative, the suppliers that they're meeting at matchmaking events and networking events have gone through a vetting process. Marcella, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that covered well.
Good stuff. Can you tell me what procurement platform that is that you guys are using?
Sure. So this is the Connexus in CONNXUS, the Connexus platform. It's a company based in Ohio, and we're launching the platform in September. And that's a great question, actually, because there's, as some of you may know, there's many platforms out there, which I was very surprised. They're great options. So after a very thorough analysis of, which one would best fit our needs, we landed in Connexus. And the reason is because they have already sort of a very robust platform in terms of, the supplier base, that's the list of suppliers that they have there, how to identify what are the designations of these suppliers, so they can track or check, I think it's like 500 different databases, and can quickly identify which of these suppliers are minority-owned, small business. I think there's like 25 different minority designations within Connexus. The other thing that we liked about Connexus is that we were able to design or customize a portal that was specific for the Chamber needs. So this portal is, if you're a Pacesetter corporation, you'll have access. are able to search for suppliers and that are already enrolled in our program. And if you're a supplier, you can search for opportunities that the paysetter corporations have posted, but they can also check other opportunities that have been posted by others in this procurement platform. And our goal for later this year is that through this platform, we should be able to track better the activity that's happening between these parties.
Why how much research and time did you spend kind of looking through the procurement systems around the country, and what was the kind of final aha moment that made you choose?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think, it took us a while. It took us a while, to be honest. I would say maybe from 4 to 6 months. Not ongoing, but I think, that's in terms of, how long it took us. We identified some of the criteria that we're really looking for the suppliers, and some of the ones that, had the most weight were functionality. So in terms of, we want it to be easy to use. We're also looking for a platform that, it's aligned with our mission. So that means, that they support diversity or they're a minority-owned company. So that was also part of our decision making. One of the factors that we took into account when deciding about this platform. One thing that I really like about the Connexus is that they already have worked with other chambers or business associations. I think that also is an important criteria when thinking about what IT tool to use. And lastly, I would say just the ability for companies just to track not only the search piece, because that's important, but I think search is very common now. I mean, there's many ways that you can search on suppliers. But I was more interested in finding a platform that they can also not only search, but we can also track the activity that's happening within the platform, whether that's someone responding to an RFP or they close a deal, etc. And that's still underway, and it's going to be implemented by the end of this year.
So I think we have time for one more question if anyone else has a question. I also have one that came through on chat asking, do you all do any sort of D&I award, an annual meeting or any kind of awards event? Do you all do anything like that? And then that's a question also for the broader group as we move into closing. So be thinking about that if you do an awards specifically for diversity, equity, inclusion and want to chime in. But I wanted to ask that and then give chance for one more question related to the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Great. So very quickly, so we currently don't have any awards for the Greater Boston Chamber in general, for D&I specifically. So I'd say that the closest that I can think of is the Small Business of the Year Award, which we have different categories included impact, community impact. So there might be like some, overlap there, but yeah, that's something that we're thinking about. Definitely. So I think, having these awards within paysetters might be a good way to test it out.
This is Jason Benitez from Capital Region, New York. Thank you all for your presentation. 2 quick questions. One is in regards to the Paysetters initiative, how many chamber staff are helping to coordinate this initiative, a total number of people? And then also for the group member that chimed in about their awards, I was wondering if there was a willingness to share what the evaluation committee looks at or the application process.
Mm-hmm. So I'll take the first question really quickly. So we have 2.5 full-time people working for Paysetters. We have 21 Paysetter corporations, and we have 90 suppliers. We're very busy. So I think, and we have also wonderful fellows and co-ops which are, joining us during this webinar today. So I would say that, yeah, I don't know if this is ideal, but definitely, that's something that, that's how we're working currently. That's our capacity.
And I apologize for the quick follow-up, but is Pacesetters the only scope of, is Pacesetters the only thing that these 2.5 folks are devoting their time to?
No, we have other assignments and initiatives, so we're not Pacesetters 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Pacesetters, Skills First internships. We also are doing, as a department, doing some research around AI and workforce issues. So lots going on over here.
Yeah.
Great, I appreciate you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say I appreciate your time and everyone's efforts to help level these playing fields. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we're hoping that, the reason that we're very intentional about leveraging technology is because I think this will sort of alleviate some of the work that we're doing currently, and because it does take, what I've learned, it takes a lot of time sort of making or facilitating these connections through email. So we're hoping that that's going to actually take some of that workload from us, and we can focus on other things as well. So it's a combination. I would say technology also, it's an important piece of it.
Great. So with the few minutes that we have left, let's just quickly touch on this Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Awards question. So Sanjita from the Greater Des Moines Partnership in the chat function was talking a little bit about an award they do. Sanjita, I don't know if you are able to chime in. Would you be willing to share more about the evaluation process and the committee process? We can follow up separately. I'll touch base offline, and if there's anything to share, I will make sure to send that out in the follow-up email from today's call. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to weigh in on a DEI award program that their chamber runs?
This is Gina from Greater Cleveland Partnership. We do a Best in Class Awards every year, and that is presented at our chamber's annual meeting. And we base our criteria on the diversity and inclusion assessment that we do every year. So upon looking at the data that we collect, we analyze that and choose our best-in-class award winners. And we have several categories looking at workforce diversity, senior management diversity, board diversity, and supplier diversity. And those are chosen based on both the demographics of that company, but also what best practices they have in place.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. So, Amy, we're here with Sheena, our colleague, and we have a very exciting also announcement for fun.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So along with the initiatives that Casey and Marcella just presented on, we also have this focus around young professionals, and then some of our programming is geared toward, specifically towards young professionals of color. I presented on this call probably the end of last fall about a festival we had just run called Fierce Urgency of Now, or FUN, and so we're about to have it again in 2 weeks. So just want to share it with folks. I'll just give you the site actually so you can look up a lot of it yourself. So it's cityawake.org/fun, and maybe one of y'all can put it in the chat.
Yeah.
And essentially we started it last year to raise awareness in the conversation and activity around highlighting the experiences and challenges and possibilities for young professionals of color in Greater Boston as our demographics continue to change, both age and racial and ethnic background. So 50% of our workforce are folks in their 20s and 30s, and about 45% of millennials are people of color. And specifically from the lens of the chamber, how do we make sure that the business community is responding positively to these changes and creating a work environment in a city and a region where young professionals of color can thrive. And so the chamber, Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, serves as the convener and kind of host of the week, but the events are hosted by corporations, individuals, community groups, cultural institutions, so it's everything from parties to panels, all focused on kind of how do we ensure Boston is somewhere where young people of color can thrive. And so it's about 40 events, and of the 40, about half of them are hosted by our chamber corporations, and it's something that our members really get into and really are playing a big part in creating, either hosting an event or they open up their venue space, their institution, to be used by a community group for free or for low cost to host events. So something really exciting. We hope to continue to grow it. One of the new elements we added this year to make it have a little more national appeal is we're bringing Tristan Walker, who created Bevel, which is a grooming line geared towards men of color, and was in the last year bought by Procter & Gamble, and so he's coming up to speak about his journey as an entrepreneur and also working with partnering with a large company. And we will be, if you all actually go to that site, City of Week, or even on our chamber site and sign up for our mailing list and click that you want to receive news about City of Week, you can continue to follow the progress of it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any last announcements before we wrap up? We have just a couple more minutes. So if anyone else has anything to share, this is a great time to do it.
Thank you all very much.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we will go ahead and wrap up for the day. So thank you so much, Casey and Marcella. We really appreciate having you today. I will be sending a follow-up email with some additional information and a link to the recording from today. So if you would like to share today's conversation with one of your colleagues or you missed a portion of it, you'll have the link for that. And with that, I look forward to talking with all of you on our September Roundtable call, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.